Recording.
Hello, everyone. We did our presentation, our replication project on decreasing bouts of prolonged sitting. The study we replicated was by Green, Sigurdson, and Wilder. My name is Cassandra Teal, and I live in Pendleton, Indiana. I'm currently in my second semester of the master's program, and I work as a registered behavior technician at a nearby ABA center.
My name is Jessica Hammond. I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is my second semester at Ball State. I also work as an RBT at a local autism center.
Hi, my name is Wenping Chen, and I currently live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I also in my second semester of the program, and also working as an RBT during the daytime from Monday through Friday, and I also work as an occupational therapist during the weekend.
Hi, my name is Angel Brown. I live in Dearborn, Michigan. This is also my second semester at Ball State. I currently work as a behavior technician at an autism clinic in my community. The American Heart Association say that many people are spending far too much time on chairs and sofas. There's also evidence that U.S. adults are sedentary for about 6 to 8 hours a day. The more time an individual spends engaging in sedentary activities, the higher the risk of death, even among people with regular exercise routine. One way to decrease health risk in individuals is to stand or move more often during the day. The recipients of this study did a replication study where the participants engaged in a different intervention that encouraged more walking and walking breaks and sitting more than 31 minutes at a time.
So next I'm going to talk about our method section for the study, and we will be talking about the design, participants, and settings and material we use, and the behavior definition. We also be talking about the data collection and also 3 different types of intervention used in the study. So the design of the study is a multiple baseline across participant design, and which means 2 or more participants in the study and focusing on the same behavior and the same treatment phases. And the dependent variable of the study is basically looking at the extent bouts of sitting behavior during a typical work day. And all 4 of us took part in the baseline as well as 3 intervention phases. And participant, which would be 4 of us, and are 3 females, which Angel Brown, 34 years old, Cassandra Teal, 26 years old, Jessica Hammond, 26 years old, and including me, 41 years old. And the setting, which will be across multiple locations because we work at a different site, and it primarily focusing on our own workplace. And just want to remind you, not all of us have a full-time job.
The materials we used during the experiment consisted of a phone application that was called Argus. It tracked the steps and sedentary periods for each participant in the study. The participants also used a timer on their phones to remind them to take breaks from sitting every 3 minutes. They did this by standing or walking. We also used a shared spreadsheet on Google Drive to combine and share all the data we collected as a group. This is an image of the Argus application. The center of the image shows the typical view of the home screen. Here you could view the dates that were tracked, the daily steps, and your calories burned. The far right of the picture shows how a specific day would be broken down. It shows your active time, your calories, and the step count. These are all visible for the specific day. From this screen, you could also view your active and sedentary periods. The white bars show higher activity, while the gray bars would show sedentary or very low activity. Within this screen in the application, users were able to scroll their finger horizontally across the bars to view the time between their sedentary and active periods. So for our replication, an extended amount of sitting was defined as being seated on a chair, the floor, or any other surface for 31 minutes or longer. So an example of this could be sitting with both your feet touching the ground and your bottom placed on a chair or other surface. A non-example could be standing or walking on 2 feet.
Data collection for our study was taken using event recording to track the frequency of extended amounts of sitting. Data was recorded using our Argus application. By friending one another on the app, we were able to see one another's data that was automatically stored each day. Participants were responsible for transferring their own data to a shared spreadsheet on Google Drive. Data was collected from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. on Monday through Thursday, and beginning on March 15th, data was collected from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. One participant, myself, collected data 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. throughout the entire study.
The baseline of the study consisted of the data was collected for the number of times one was seated for 31 minutes or longer in their current location. So an example would this be if they were sitting at work, or if they were driving, or if they were at their house, any location they were at, and they were sitting for more than 31 minutes, they would count that. During the baseline phase, the participants did not receive any information concerning health risk or benefits for physical activity.
The first intervention was called information. At the beginning of this phase, our experimenter, Angel, read a script to educate all of us on prolonged sitting. She noted that it increases the risk of diabetes, obesity, and other health issues. This was then sent to each participant and was able to be accessed through a supplemental YouTube video. The individuals were instructed to take short breaks, anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and to do this every 30 minutes. For this phase, no other information or prompts were used. Next, we will show the supplemental clip that we used for this intervention.
Hey everyone, now that all of you have tracked how long you've been sitting for, I'm going to give you some information about health risk for sitting too long. There has been known studies that sitting too long for long periods of time can cause health risks such as increased obesity, diabetes, and other health problems. That's why health professionals encourage you to get up and take breaks after 30 minutes of sitting. You should get up and take a break anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And this would decrease the chances of any health risks such as obesity or diabetes. Just taking short breaks, standing and walking during the day, you burn more calories. So it is beneficial to make sure you get up and take breaks, and just for your health's sake, it's better for you to do that instead of just sitting for a long period of time without any kind of breaks. Thank you.
In intervention 2, we used a tactile prompt, which was a timer that sounded or vibrated every 30 minutes to remind the individual to stand or walk for any amount of time between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. The timer sounded or vibrated independent of the individual's movement during the session. Some individuals used a watch or smartwatch. Other individuals used a phone as their timer.
Intervention 3 was the tactile prompt feedback and goal setting. For this phase, individuals set goals for the first day of the final phase, and then if they didn't meet their own personal goal, the goal was not met, the individual would decrease it by 50%.
The original study did not set a criterion to move between phases. However, we implemented criterion in our replication. We set our criterion at an average decrease of 1 bout across 3 days. We changed this on March 15th to an average decrease of 0.3 across 3 days in order to continue moving forward.
Okay, so next I'll be talking about our IOA data. So originally our group is going to do total count IOA, but then it was suggested to use exact agreement IOA. So basically we, as our own primary observer, put our data from August in the Excel spreadsheet. Then we assign our peers to be a second observer, and they look in our August app and then put down the number of the observation in the same Excel sheet. And then we're looking at the numbers of days in exact agreement, which means if I observe as a primary observer, I say Monday is 5 bouts, and then secondary observers say Monday is also 5 bouts, then it's the exact agreement. So then we're looking at the total numbers of days in exact agreement and divide by numbers of a day throughout the data collection period and multiply by 100%. So as you can see that each of us has varies of the IOA percentage, but if we just looking at our original plan for the total count IOA, our total count IOA has a better result than the exact agreement IOA. So next, we'll be talking about our own individual results throughout the study. So I'm the first one going to talk about my result. So you can see that I have a 9 days of baseline. I have 6 days of information, and then 5 days of tactile prompt, and then I also have 5 days for the last phase. And you can see on the x-axis, it shows you the different dates, and then the y-axis, it shows you the numbers of bouts. Okay, and then so I use the 0.3 to help me to move from information to a tactile prompt. But then for my last phase, which including the feedback, I set my personal goal to have no more than 1 bout across at least 2 days. So because of that, I end my last phase of intervention on April 2nd.
So this is my personal graph. I took baseline data for 8 days and had an average of 0.5. As you can see in the first phase information, it was my longest next to baseline with 7 days of data. This for me was due to difficulties with phase criterion and the time changes we made. Another issue I faced was difficulty with the Argus application during the tactile prompt, feedback, and goal setting phase. The application didn't track data for me on March 25th or 26th. It was just completely missing from the app. So I then had to use the next available day of collected data. And then those missing days were not included in my calculations. In the final intervention, I set a personal goal of 1 bout or less of sitting for the 8 hours that we collected to complete my final day, or to complete my final phase.
This is my personal data, and as you can see, mine is similar to Winpen and Cassandra's. I had difficulties with the tactile prompt stage. My Argus app also didn't record a day on March 28th. But then on the last phase, on the goal setting and feedback phase, my personal goal was to get 0 bouts of sitting that day, and I achieved that on the very first day, so I was done with my study.
This is my graph. I also had complications with the Argus app. It did not collect data on March 15th, March 19th, and March 20th. So you can see that those spots will be skipped on my graph. For my last phase, the tactile prompt, feedback, and goal setting, my goal in order to get out of that phase was to decrease my average from baseline by 50%. My average and baseline ended up being 3.7, and my average for phase 3 was 1.75, which allowed me to end my study on April 4th.
So this is a combined graph from 3 participants, and we did not include Jessica because she has a different data collection time during the days. And as you can see, there's still a staggering across 3 different participants. And overall, all of the 3 participants were able to achieve their personal goal at the last phase of the intervention.
Now we are to the limitations of the study. The limitations consisted of the accuracy of the data collection, like people had mentioned before. Some people, their app didn't record every single day. And then there's also glitches, meaning that sometimes it would duplicate the same day on the app. And then there was differences between the Apple and Android phone, and we didn't realize that until we were already through the study, that not everybody had an Apple iPhone, so they couldn't look at the Argus app the exact same way if they had an Android. We also had limitation with communication. We found out that text conversation on Hangouts versus video meetings were not as effective as when you would have a video meeting with the group. We changed the amount of time tracked from 12:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., changed to 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We changed the criterion from 1 to 0.3 to be able to move between phases when the time given for project, so we can get the project done in the time frame. Another limitation that we had was it was difficult for us to send out the communication about every morning for the phases due to people with their work schedule, school, and children. So it was kind of difficult to keep up with when everybody was going to another phase. And I personally found it was difficult to collect data on the Argus app because you had to hold your phone the entire time for it to record your steps. And I found that challenging working with children. I don't always hold my phone. And so I think that it would have been a little bit easier if we would have had like an Apple Watch, something that was on our wrist, something that we didn't have to hold the entire time to track our steps.
I'm now going to go over the differences between the original study and our replication. As I mentioned before, the original study did not have a criterion to change between phases. However, in our replication, we decided to implement a criterion in order to get our study moving. Data was recorded from 12:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. on Monday through Thursday originally, which was written in our project protocol. We did this to accommodate our actual hours between all participants. However, we changed this to 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday to accommodate the original study, to be more similar to the original study. We also had a difference in the way we collected our data. We used the Argus app in our replication, whereas in the original study, they used a hip-worn actigraph, which counted their steps throughout the day. We also had a difference in our tactile prompt. We used a phone or watch in our replication, whereas the original study used a specific watch worn by all participants that vibrated every 30 minutes. We had a difference in the delivery of information and feedback, as we previously explained. And then in the original study, their definition of bouts, they counted it as an additional bout every 30 minutes if the bout exceeded 31 minutes. Our replication only counted this as one bout. IOA data was collected through the Argus app.
So just like Jessica mentioned, in the future study, when we want to do this study again, we may want to looking for how we count bouts more carefully as compared to the original study. So we also want to make sure that the experimenter, which will be just purely experimenter, not being the participant, because like the difficulty that Angel mentioned, it's just not easy for her to keep track everything, being the experimenter and being the participant as well.
So in conclusion, each participant was able to decrease his or her bouts of sitting and complete the study within the time allotted. Each participant was also able to meet his or her personal goal that they set in the final phase. We believe that this study has made us more aware of the negative consequences of prolonged sitting, and we feel that we are now more conscious of taking breaks from sitting throughout the day, and we're more motivated to increase our activity further. We want to thank everyone for taking the time to view our presentation. Please feel free to post any questions or comments you have in the discussion board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.